Throughout the 20th century, South Africa was brutalized by systematic oppression and the apartheid government, which forced the separation of racial groups. They divided housing, workplaces, and schools. The white minority regime controlled the vast wealth of the country, oppressed the majority of its people, and forced them out of areas they declared for whites only. In 1990, Nelson Mandela was released from 27 years in prison. The apartheid government was still in power and was trying to convince the world that black Africans could not govern the country. Violent civil war raged in South Africa.
At that time, the racial situation was so bad. It was so bad.
In the 60s and the 70s, height of apartheid, we were marked at that time as terrorists.
So many people were dying at the time. And there were certain areas where one could not easily move in.
Can you imagine being restricted with your life? You are being told how to live your life. It brought a lot of people down. It killed, in fact, a lot of people.
South Africa was a prison for everybody because the government imposed their will and people were forced to live in separated areas. From the moment that I could really think for myself and see what was going on, it became an upbringing or a childhood of great pain and conflict.
Sharon Katz, born in racist South Africa, who seemed to have missed it all.
Sharon was willing to come to our location, and yet white people never thought of doing that in those days. And it was very dangerous for her to go there.
And we were more worried about her family. She was too passionate about humanity. She understood human dignity and respect. That's what we needed. South Africans who simply ignored apartheid.
There was one group of children that came from the most impoverished area, and I used to go and sing with them. These children, who have never seen electricity, didn't have running water, could barely have any food to eat. And they were so happy. The smiles on these children's faces, it says a lot about how the human spirit can triumph over very difficult circumstances if there's music.
It was something new for us, we were all excited. The whole school was buzzing. We've got white people in our premises. We were told that they were going to teach us some songs, and we go to sing with other white kids, colored kids, Indian kids.
Mandela had just been released from prison, and I was inspired to do something that had never been done before. Unite children from all racial groups into one huge choir to blend our voices together and express optimism and hope for the future of our country.
And you hold your Africa until it's time to come in again, okay? You like it? Yes.
Our schools were all separated at that time, and I had to rehearse black children in their schools in the black townships, Indian children in Indian schools in the Indian areas, colored children in their schools in colored areas, and the white children in their schools in white areas. This was apartheid.
The mission and the vision that she had, I had the same thing, because it wasn't just fighting for freedom, you have to carry AK-47, but also with your mind.
Eventually we found a way for all the choirs to come together in one place for combined rehearsals.
When we entered for that rehearsal, we were so shocked. I just remember thinking, what on earth is this? I'd never seen so many people of different colors in the same place at the same time. We realized that it wasn't just about being part of a choir, but we're spreading our message via music.
And some of the lyrics were Zulu lyrics. And we were rehearsing Zulu songs with white kids. And we realized that they were just like us. They could sing, well, they could try to dance.
Now I want to talk about being forced to dance. I was terrible.
After the success of the first show, it just struck me. We have to take this message all over the country now. We need to travel by train because there's no bus big enough to carry 500 children. There's violence all over South Africa. People are fighting and the old government likes it that way. We'll call it the peace train, and we need to do it as soon as possible for our beautiful country to survive and move into a new era.
We insisted that each compartment on the train would be a racially mixed group to look like we're now in the new South Africa, and it was a phenomenal experience. There was an atmosphere of absolute jubilance on this train.
We were all treated exactly the same. Nobody was any better or any less. We just enjoyed each other's company.
The only time I could ever be myself was when I was with the choir. They were my friends. They weren't looking at me as Miss White Girl.
The kids had to choose someone who was going to be their leader, and they all voted for me. And I was surprised because growing up in South Africa, where white people were always in charge, were supreme, now you find a situation where white kids are voting for me, saying they want me to be their leader, and that changed my life.
It was a stepping stone for so many of the children. Most of them came from underprivileged homes. But when these kids became involved in the peace train, they could see part of another world out there. Children flourished. If these children had not been part of the peace train, I shudder to think what might have happened to them.
We always stressed that there's a responsibility that goes along with being in the peace train. We're there to set an example, yes, but we're also there to go out into our various communities and do the work that needs to be done.
We took the message back to our schools. You know what? I said, I've got white friends, I've got Indian friends, and I've got colored friends.
The peace train wasn't just about 80 kids. It was about their families as well, their brothers, their sisters, their uncles, their aunties. It was a good preparation for that democracy that was coming into play.
I do believe that South Africa has a legacy and a history and a tradition to share with the rest of the world, having defeated apartheid.
In retrospect, when I think about that moment when we all were there for that first rehearsal, I can only imagine how beautiful it must have looked, sitting in the audience and watching these kids in all their different school uniforms, having this moment in history that most kids at that time would never even imagine.